Pinkerton, the guards, the detectives. He was the leading conductor on the Underground Railroad in Illinois. Did you know that? A man, he was protecting the law with one hand and hiding slaves with another. Alan Pinkerton, who was a good friend of John Brown and also a good friend of Henry David Thoreau. So Alan Pinkerton was a very important agent on the Underground Railroad. But in Detroit, there was a man by the name of William Lambert who invented the African mystery based upon the Masonic Lodge with signs and symbols. How far do you come tonight, brother? I came by the North Star. I traveled so far. I came to a place called Safety, and they would shake hands. One time when John Brown was going through Iowa, and he wasn't sure if the person was a pro-slaver, had pro-slavery views or anti-slavery views, so he pulled his right ear. And the man hesitated for a while, and he pulled his left ear as a sign that he was stationed in the Underground Railroad. They had coins on the Underground Railroad. I'm sure you're familiar with the saying, I'm not a woman and a sister, the little coins, or I'm not a brother or a man. They used the coins as symbols of passing the Underground Railroad. But most importantly, I want to bring out some of the roles of the women. We all, from Valerie Lucretia Mott, who stood less than 5 feet tall, weighed 90 pounds, but yet and still she could stare down the most vicious slave hunter. You know, she, as I said, lives, there's only the gatehouse that remains of her house in Cheltenham Township in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. But she had a house called Roadside. In her house were some of the outstanding people of today, such as the Frederick Douglass, John Greenleaf Whittier, and so forth. They all came there. And the great British actress Fanny Kemble stayed, and she was a part of the Underground Railroad. A woman by the name of Maria Weston Chaplin, as we know, the Grimke sisters. Sojourner Truth, I don't want to say too much more about her because it was said. Sarah Ramon, born in Plymouth, Salem, Massachusetts. Her and her brother Charles were leading abolitionists during their time, freed black and freed. And matter of fact, when Frederick Douglass escaped from Maryland, he stayed at first at New Bedford, the home of Nate Johnson. Later, he hooked up with Garrison and Ramon. And Ramon, Charles Lake Ramon, sort of fell out with Frederick Douglass because he felt that Frederick Douglass became too violent. Francis Watkin Ellen Harper, the anti-slavery poet from Philadelphia. Another name is familiar in underground lore is Jane Swisshelm. Jane Swisshelm, who fought early for women's rights and black rights. She was a feisty woman living in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She had a paper called the Saturday Review, and later she published against the pro-slavery views of the day. She moved to St. Cloud, Minnesota, where they tried to run her out of town because of her views for women's rights and slave rights. Lucy Stone, we know the connection Lucy Stone with Susan B. Anthony and Maria Childs. Julia Ward Howe, we heard a little bit of the Battle Hymn of the Republic being sung by Ms. Burroughs a while ago. And it's very important. Do you know the origin of how that song was written? Started the Battle Hymn of the Republic, which was Abraham Lincoln's favorite hymn. It started to the tune of John Brown's Body Lies a Mourning in the Grave and Soul Goes Marching On. And Abraham Lincoln at first said John Brown was a fool for what he did. And it was irony that marching off to the Civil War, Julia Ward Howe, who was looking out the window at a group of black soldiers going off to war, the song John Brown, Body Lies a Mourning in the Grave and the Soul Go Marching On. So she wrote the Battle Hymn of the Republic. It's always good to know how certain songs go. Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Harriet Beecher Stowe. What should we say about Harriet Beecher Stowe? The fact that she wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin, and it more or less stimulated the whole movement about the Underground Railroad. Grace and Sarah Mapps Douglas, as was mentioned before, was a part of the Philadelphia Vigilance Society. The Philadelphia Vigilance Society had a branch of women. It was a society where hundreds of slaves were sent. Thomas Garrett, the great Quaker conductor in Wilmington, Delaware, who was a close friend also of Harry Tubman, sent many slaves to the Vigilance Society. Mary Grew was a part of it. Charlotte Fortin, and another outstanding family, the Bustill family. Bustill family goes back to Cyrus Bustill, as was mentioned before. Cyrus Bustill baked bread for George Washington, in Philadelphia and took it to Valley Forge. Cyrus Bustill was the great-great-grandfather of Paul Robeson, whose mother was Louisa Bustill, whose grandmother was Emily Bustill, and her husband Charles were very important agents on the Underground Railroad. And before I leave, I want to, there's so much, as I said, I'm sort of hurrying along. The Black Swan, Elizabeth Taylor Greenfield, they call her the Black Florence Nightingale. She was a part of the Underground Railroad. She sang many songs to raise money in Philadelphia and so forth. And Mary Ann Shadd, have you heard the name of Mary Ann Shadd? Mary Ann Shadd was one of the most courageous women of her day besides Harriet Tubman, good friend of Tubman. She's a strikingly beautiful woman. Her descendants are still living in Buxom, Canada. Born in Delaware, they say that we're taught that Dolly Madison invented what? That isn't true. Have you ever heard of a president's wife in the kitchen? Now, come on. Mary Ann Shadd's grandmother, they call her Mother Shadd. The Shadds were part of black and Hessian descendant. She is the one who invented ice cream. So the Shadd family made their money in lumber and so forth. Abraham Shadd, the father, attended the first black convention in Philadelphia in 1831 with Mother Bethel Church, Richard Allen. Mary Ann Shadd became a school teacher. She taught in Westtown, Chester County, Philadelphia, my hometown in Norristown. And later she, during the terrible Fugitive Slave Act of 1850, where whole communities of blacks moved from all over New York and Pennsylvania, all over into Canada. The Shadds went up there to Buxom and they started a newspaper. It was called the Provincial Freedman. And Mary Ann Shadd became the first black female editor of a newspaper in the country. And as was said of her by William Wells Brown, if she was a man, she would have been with John Brown. She was a feisty woman, you know, and Frederick Douglass, she worked close with Frederick Douglass and others who spoke out. These are some of the songs I call, and we can sing some of them later on. I'm someone who really knows a little bit of music. I just want to give you some of the codes. Speaking in riddles and singing in codes. There was a lot of codes, as I said before, with handshakes and signs and symbols, with the statue of the little Jocko, the little man on the lawn. But the song, steal away, steal away, steal away to Jesus, for I ain't got long to stay here. Harriet Tubman used many coded spirituals. Frederick Douglass said, when I heard, O Canaan, O Canaan, O Canaan over me, I knew it meant what? O Canada, O Canada, O Canada over me. They had to code the song. Another song, let us break bread together on our knees. Oh Lord, have mercy if you please. And before the what? Before the rising sun, before the sunrise, we're going to escape. It was a code. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for what? Where was home? Freedom. Who was the queen at the time that said any slave put on Canadian soil would be given their freedom? Who was the queen at that time? Victoria. Victoria. The same way as the Mexican government. Now, the Underground Railroad also ran south. Did you know that? It ran into Mexico and it ran into Florida with the Seminole Indians. And the Mexican government also said that any slave fugitive who set foot on Mexican soil was free. So many slaves, for instance, one man from New England, a sea captain, Jonathan Walker, was in Florida helping to build the railroads there, carrying lumber and whatever. So a group of slaves approached him one day and asked him to help him escape. He agreed to take him towards the Bahamas. He was caught. He became ill in the middle of the ocean and he had to come back. He was caught, he was chained, and he was branded, just like some of my ancestors were branded, with the SS, letter SS on his palm, indicating what? Slave stealer. And later he was freed after spending 6 months or so in dungeon, a heavy fine, and he toured all New England, and in Rochester, Frederick Douglass said to him, the SS and the signified slave savior. So Jonathan Walker, there were many whites who risked their lives. Ernestine Rose, as I said before, the Jews are often left out of the Underground Railroad. Many of them were peddlers who went into the South, helping slaves to escape. I just returned from Toro, the oldest synagogue in the United States at Newport, Rhode Island. It was a stop on the Underground Railroad, started by the Spanish Jews. So when you read your history, As I said before, historians say the Underground Railroad was nothing but myths and legends. So how can you look at Harriet Tubman and call it a myth and a legend? So we need to write our own history. Children, how shall I send thee? I shall send thee how? Or? This is another part. We'll go over this song. Walk together, children. Walk together, children. And don't become what? We're going to make it where? Where's the promised land? Freedom in Canada. So they had to code. They couldn't say Canada. They had to say the promised land. The land was promised by who? Queen Victoria. If you got there, you were free. I have shoes. You have shoes. When we get to where? Gonna do what? Everybody's heaven in what? Oh, they're doing the cakewalk. Remember in the old buck dance? They're never going to escape the following night, so they're dancing around the slave cabin, looking at the big house, and singing, I have shoes, or I have a robe, you have a robe, either one. When we get to heaven, we're going to put on their robe and going to walk all over God's heaven. Now pointing the finger back, everybody's talking out, heaven ain't going there, heaven. The slave master or mistress are so cruel during the week, whipping and maiming and raping and so forth. And every Sunday, what happened? They become so pious and they're going to church. So everybody's talking about heaven ain't going there, heaven. This was a very important code. Gumbaya, oh what? Oh Lord, come by here. Come by, we know that song with Joe and Baez and all done in the 60s. It's all a part of the code song. And another one, wade in the water, children. Wade in the water, children. Who's going to trouble the water? God's going to trouble the water. God is the slave master or slave mistress time coded. He can tell you when to get to bed, go to bed, when to get up, when to have children, and so forth. So God is trouble the water. If you get into the water, what will happen to the bloodhound? What happened to the scent? They can't smell it. So Harry, crossing the Delaware River, come up along the Brandywine River from Wilmington into Philadelphia, or later into Cape May, she would have her charges sing, wade in the water, children, so the bloodhounds couldn't pick it up. Now there's many more. I went to the rock, and the rock cried out, there's no hiding place. There's a highway where? To heaven, walking up the King's Highway. Take my hand, precious Lord, and lead me on. And very important. And the last one I want to tell you about, and it touches me at time because I'm a very sensitive person, you know, and when I hear Paul Robeson sing the song, it makes me cry. And it made you cry many a times. And to realize the importance of the song and where it came from, you know, it happened during the 1780s, 90s, when a former slave, vicious slave trader and dealer, repented and joined the forces of Grenville Sharp and Wilberforce and other, Thomas Clarkson. And he was used to taking bodies, blacks, across the oceans and throwing them into the water when they died or when they was ill for sharks and so forth. This song, Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound to save a soul like me. You know that song? It's so important. Did you know that it was written by a slave trader? A slave trader. Can you imagine that beautiful, stirring song written by a slave trader? How does it go? To go with the words, Amazing Grace. That say what? I was what? But now. Thank you.
Well, I hope everybody feels as inspired as I do right now. We're going to have lunch a little later. I know people are probably hungry, but we want to take some of the songs that we've learned out to the pond and sing them. And then we're going to... Oh, no, she's going to sing over the other place. And then we're going to walk over to the church, and I think maybe we may have lunch and then go on to the second part of the program. And thank everybody that participated in this half so much. Let's give them a hand. Andrea, She said with a smile on her face.
I would love to have some stuff of mine. Okay. So maybe tomorrow and Sunday we can work on that. Yeah, I want to talk. I hadn't heard from DL yet. Never do. She's back. Okay, and you are How are you? No, I just turned it on.
But I mean, just being conscious that the mic is. That's true. You're right, Andre. Just be conscious of it. You can hear us talking about all this shit. That's like in the Nicaragua movie, where they have that shot of the guy getting killed, and the guys, the cameraman and the sound person.
I wasn't wise. I'm getting timid. They would not let them pass.